The site is subject to multiple complex parameters which inform the design response. Once all requirements were identified, an indicative design was produced, ready for pre-application advice from the local planning authority. This confirmed the relevant legislation to comply. Note that the advice is not final and may not necessarily identify all factors. However, it is a useful indicator and general sense check. For example, it was not indicated that a flood risk assessment and mitigation plan is required. However, the bat survey requirement was identified. The surveying period can be time-intensive if bats are present. In this case, the ecologist identified evidence of a historic roost through sending off faeces for a lab test. The result triggered the requirement of 3-stage surveys. Once the biodiversity mitigation and enhancement plan were in place, and the design incorporated and evolved, the full plan application was made. Post extensive communications with the case officers, the plan approval was granted. In this case, concept to plan approval and full family living on site took circa 18 months. Note, delays outside your control are not unusual. In fact, it is a high probability and it is prudent to prepare as potential of unforeseen circumstances is high. For example, delays in receiving your planning approval, the need to reroute services, accommodation provisions requiring you to pay rent elsewhere, and of course implications from COVID-19. All combined with the loss of multiple thousands of pounds impacting your resources, it may push back the completion date. However, in the meantime, you can concentrate your efforts on cultivating the land. And that is exactly what we did.
We focused our energy on reviving the soil and vegetation to benefit the flora and fauna. This included clearing immense bramble bushes, erecting post and rail fencing to make the land secure before bringing our horses, planting a double staggered row of 295 mixed native wildlife hedging that will provide fruit in the autumn, flowers in the spring, and shelter from the wind. We planted 8 willow cuttings along the riverbank to help prevent erosion and transplanted several dormant saplings to the perimeter from locations where they would otherwise be damaged. Whilst time-consuming, it meant that we were able to salvage some materials, collecting the existing rubble from the collapsed buildings on site and sorting it ready for reuse where practical. In the first summer, we grew potatoes, beans and tomatoes in the old vegetable patch we uncovered. Everything else, apart from existing fruit trees, has been planted in pots until we are able to put them in their final positions. This delay in planting to ground has the benefit of allowing the plants to become fruit-bearing and for us to see where each plant favours in terms of weather conditions. After the initial mammoth clearing of ferns and bramble, we continue to regularly de-weed. The heavy clay soil near the river was rotivated and enriched with a new 20-ton layer of high-quality topsoil and seeded with a low-sugar mix of grasses, which is a specific dietary requirement of our ponies, both of which have medical conditions. Our equines predominantly live on a track system that encourages movement and natural foraging behaviour and are let into the grass area as part of their feeding routine on a short period in the evening. Combined with the hen's manure, the horse waste is composted and used as fertiliser for the grass, as well as the crops we grow, including off-site as we distribute excess to family, friends and local community. The site benefits from a wonderful mix of established trees such as ash, hazel and oak. We cleared away excessive vines and ivy that were smothering the trees, as well as some laurel that was over-dominating. In an attempt to maintain and encourage the wealth of biodiversity on site, we started feeding the birds, putting up bird boxes, bug houses, creating log piles, selecting and planting native plants of high value to pollinators, birds and mammals. We also made a hedgehog house in the hope of creating a safe place and inviting them in. Bat boxes are next on the list to go up. This was something we always planned for, but also happens to form part of the mitigation for the build. Being by a river, we get lots of toads and frogs, so that little hideaways for them in safe locations are also on the agenda. With the climatic shifts and the ever-present weather extremes, we have created a temporary hard surface area that will soak away the rainwater, allowing for excavator parking and safe storage of construction materials and a zone for deliveries, as this can often have quite a disruptive impact on the local community in terms of traffic and access.